Michelle is our season 6 coachee. Yeah. So much to share there in terms of what led to that, most of which will be in the intro episode, but we'll get into a little bit of that today, and then a little bit more of sharing about what Michelle does, her journey, all of that. Lucy says, as soon as Lacey said Michelle's my girl on a previous live, I was like, oh, it's gotta be Michelle. Yeah.
That's so funny because I don't know that I was actually officially the coachee when that happened. Because I remember that was in August when I quit my job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that I think we wouldn't have started.
It wasn't till October. So
yeah, crazy.
Also so appropriate that my dogs are like losing their minds the moment we start live streaming. Welcome to episode 1.
Yeah. We're very pro dog here, so it's totally fine. No, so funny that I love that so many of y'all guessed. I think that it's really been a cool thing because Michelle obviously does something totally different, and that's something I always love to bring to Literally is just showing that there are different businesses and they operate in different ways, and there's different challenges that come up with each of them. It was before, I think Lucy said, yeah, exactly. And there are different challenges that come up with each of them. So let's just start there. Michelle, maybe tell everyone, I think a lot of people know, but like tell everyone a little bit about your business, what you do, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I'm an infertility and IVF support coach, and I provide emotional support to women and mentorship through their infertility and IVF journeys. And obviously that has stemmed from my own personal experience doing 3 rounds of IVF, 3 losses, 5 transfers. So just a lot of experience and good, bad, ugly there. And a lot of what I really felt called to do was just like provide the emotional support that I wish that I had had, and really give women the tools to like find joy even in a hard season, and show that like joy and sadness could coexist, which I think is such an important message and something that we don't hear enough of. So it's such an honor to get to walk alongside women in this journey. And it obviously gives so much meaning to my own personal journey and experience as well.
And I think it's been really, or it will be, I guess, really helpful for people to hear this on Literally, because obviously Michelle's audience has a totally different set of challenges and is so not exposed to coaching as the norm, like so many people are in our space, and is so not, are so challenged by like how much they're paying for IVF, how many other things they have going on. And so I think it's just really helpful to see that, because I feel like, sometimes the like business coaching space that we're in makes it seem like you should just be able to like blink and everyone buys from you. And like, it's, if you don't, there's a problem. And, that's not always the case. Like, I think that, for us, coaching feels so mainstream and normal. And for so many others, not in this bubble that we kind of exist in, it's still so brand new and so unheard of. And the idea of spending that much money to get support is wild, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think like so many of my clients, when they come to me, like they've not really heard of coaching. They've maybe done some therapy, and they're just kind of like, I felt complete with therapy, but I need something else. And I guess coaching is that, and they just dump in. So, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of like confronting around like the money, and like, I think as women in general, investing in ourselves is hard, period. And then add like the cost of IVF plus investing in something that you're like not even really sure what it is. It's like a whole other ballgame.
Yeah. And like, I think you getting to explore kind of like, and I would still choose that, and I still want to pick that, or even though there are these challenges, I still am choosing that, I think is really interesting, because I feel like, again, in this space, it's almost like we are so quick to make that wrong, instead of being like, oh, I'm just like learning this audience, this business, I'm maybe going to always have more challenges, or maybe always have to like work a little bit harder or whatever at getting them on board. And like, can that be okay in a certain respect? And I'm really excited for people to get to hear and see that, because I think that that's not normalized in the way that it needs to be, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think even I have to like pay attention to like the messaging that I'm absorbing around that,
Yeah.
because I think for a long time, and I think sometimes this belief still creeps in, is like the only way to make money in the coaching industry is to be a business coach. And even like my husband has reflected that to me. He's like, when are you going to start coaching people in their like businesses? And I'm like, no, I can like coach people in the thing that I like feel called to coach them in and still make money doing that, and like all the things. And so, but like it's like a constant like having to come back to that, because I do think there's a lot of messaging around it. And to be fair, like a lot of the spaces that I spend time in, right, are spaces that are filled with business coaches, but
totally.
I know there's a lot of folks in here too who are not that also.
So much to say about that, but I want to read comments before.
You're like, we could do a whole live stream on that.
Yeah. But Lindsay says she so resonates with that in her line of coaching too. And she's really excited for you. Lucy said same. Carrie says she's so excited for you. Thank you. Hey, Lisa. She said tuning in from the New York airport. Oh, why are you in New York? That's exciting.
I feel so special that she's here from New York.
Yeah, thank you for coming to us from the airport. Yeah, but I think that, you know, the thing that makes business coaching easier, in my opinion, isn't so much that there's like a more tangible result or anything like that. It's just that people are more conditioned to believe that coaching is normal and it's the solution to their problems. Like the thing that's so valuable about these spaces is that in some ways, like I feel like I never really have to convince someone that they need coaching. I'm like more like convincing them that they need me specifically for that. And so it's just a different challenge, right? Like you're not really having to convince anyone why Michelle for IVF coaching. Like if they found you, they're picking you for the most part, right?
Yeah. And
but
like,
it's more like why
there's not that many of us either.
What is it?
Like,
right.
Yeah.
And I think that's just important to see, where it's like so easy to be like, oh, business coaching is so much easier. And in a sense, like it just has different challenges. So like the challenge isn't convince them about coaching, the challenge is convince them about you. Obviously, like convince being, like,
yeah,
we could say that in a better way, but you get what I mean. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think it's just helpful for people to see that difference, right?
Yeah. And I was also reflecting too on the fact that like, it's been interesting also, because I feel like a lot of times we'll be having conversations about business and I'm constantly like, oh, this is what I talk to my clients about, like in the infertility space. So it's also interesting to think too, like I have had to learn to do all of these things in my infertility and IVF journey. And I like, master is not the right word, because there's always space to go deeper, right? And the universe will always open up opportunities for that if you're like, hello, I think I'm here. Nope. But I feel like I like learned how to do all these things in my infertility journey. And I think a lot of this season is me learning to do that in my business. Whereas like if I was a business coach, I like would have learned those things in my business and that's what I'm teaching. But I'm like teaching the like parallel connection, which like adds an interesting nuance and challenge to it. But it also makes a lot of sense, because I talk to my clients about how these tools are really applicable beyond your infertility and IVF journey. And so like, of course I would be having to learn it and master it in a new space so that they can see how to apply that. So anyways, that was my revelation of this morning while driving between doctor's appointments.
So true. I mean, I think that's true. You know, we typically learn the same lessons in lots of places, and it's just applying them. It's usually not different lessons. You know what I mean? Oh, Lisa, good. You're on vacation. You're visiting family. That's so fun. She says she's even more excited for this season now that it's you. That's awesome. Nasheen said that she just watched the Million Her Mindset training and you were coach live there, and she loves seeing the shift from that time. You have such a different energy in your business now. Loving it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was such a baby then. That was like what, February or March of last year?
Gosh, yeah, I think it was probably a year ago.
Yeah.
Crazy. So crazy. I can't believe that was a year ago. Oh my gosh. I feel like I did that like 4 months ago or something like that.
So much time.
So another piece that I think has been interesting this season that we can talk about a little bit and share. If you follow Michelle, you probably know this. If you don't, this is kind of fun, but Michelle is pregnant. which
Yeah.
at the beginning of our work, she was not. So you get to listen to that transition. And obviously after all the loss you've experienced and all of that, I think it's just like really beautiful that we kind of got to meet you at this point in time. So tell me how that part has kind of felt, or talk about that a little bit. Cause I feel like that's obviously it's what you wanted. And so it's so great to be going into that. But at the same time, like it is kind of a lot, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of, at least like the early part, right? Like I was just telling Lacey before we got on here, like it's interesting for me because I've only like lived these like episodes. They weren't even episodes, they were moments in my life, right? I've only lived these coaching sessions through the actual coaching session. So I'm actually really excited to go back and like listen to them and kind of like be able to step back from them a little bit and hear Lacey's reflections on them. And even just thinking back to like the Million Hurt like coaching session, that was right after my second miscarriage. And we did another transfer in August, and that also took and miscarried. And so this fourth transfer that I was going into, and I'll say fourth with an asterisk, this is technically our fifth, because our first one turned into our 3-year-old. For those of you that don't know, I have a 3-year-old. She is very excited to be a big sister through this whole process, which has been really sweet. And yeah, like going into this fourth transfer, like I obviously really wanted it to work, but I was terrified. Like we'd had so much loss, and our last 2 transfers like really didn't get very far, even though they took. And I just faced a lot of like heartbreak and disappointment. And I think something that's like really special about this getting to be captured as part of Literally is like, you really get to like walk alongside me and see what it's like to be in each stage of the process, which is something that so many of my clients struggle with. And like, it's not without fear. It's not without like, worry, right? Like we processed all of that. Like my anxiety was so heightened before each of these like moments and these appointments. And I like, there's something really special about having that like captured and documented in its like very raw form. Cause I do try to be really open and transparent with my audience about sharing like the emotions and all the things coming up. Like I try really hard not to sugarcoat things, because I think there's a lot of toxic positivity in the online space, just period. And especially like around something that's like very heavy, like infertility. But it's something so different to get to like hear it like real time. So anyways, I think that that's like a really special part of this journey. And I'm really excited to invite even my audience, who is probably not watching this live stream today, to like at least listen to the first like 10 minutes of each episode and get to be like, oh, this is what it really feels like, so that they know that they're not alone if they're feeling that too.
Totally. And I also think it's really helpful for other business owners to see how like the stuff we're walking through outside of business is going to impact the business. There's no way you could be going through something as challenging and big as you were without that impacting the business. And I think that, we're so conditioned to feel like those should be separate, or one shouldn't, have any effect on the other, which is like so toxic, I think, because it's like, yeah, you're nervous about IVF, but you should feel confident in the business or whatever. Like we talk a lot in the first few sessions of like how much uncertainty is really tough, like in this season, because you have so much uncertainty in the IVF process. So anything that feels uncertain in the business is super triggering and intense. Well, it's because of that. It's not because you're just like bad at managing uncertainty or stuff, right? You know what I mean?
Right, but that's the story that our brains go to, right? Of like, why can't I handle this? Like, I should be able to do this. Like, I should be able to show up in my business, even though this really hard thing is happening. Yeah. And it's really frustrating. Like, I think you'll hear that too, of like, there were times where I felt like I was basically just like energetically repelling clients because I was dealing with this really heavy thing, and I couldn't deal with the disappointment of like more rejection there. But I was really frustrated because I was like, no, I want this, but like, it's, I really do think that like everything happens in perfect timing, even though in the midst of everything, it is frustrating as fuck.
Totally.
There's no other way to put it. So
yes. Elisa says, have you finished? Oh, everyone's saying congratulations on being pregnant.
Oh, thank you.
Elise is saying, have you already finished the recording of all the sessions? No, but we will soonish. Like we'll soon.
Couple sessions
Yeah.
away.
Can't wait to listen to more of the business life conversation. Oh my gosh, I love Michelle. I didn't see that coming at all. Yay.
Someone
well, at least we surprised someone. Yeah.
Well, like my entire mastermind from last spring knew because I like found out in the process of it. And so it was like, this is the like group that gets to know, but
yes,
it was just like coming, you know?
Totally. And then, well, how far along are you? Tell everyone that because we haven't really said that.
Yeah, I'm 21 weeks. So just over halfway. We had our anatomy scan on Friday. Everything looked perfect. The doctor was like, thank you for having a normal anatomy scan on a Friday at 4 p.m. I was like, you're welcome.
Yes.
So yeah, things are looking really good. And it's a baby girl. It's another little girl. So big sister is very excited. And I've been feeling her like twist and turn constantly. Mila was like a butt bouncer. She's like a turn. We'll see what that means for their personalities, but yeah. And I'm due in July. So
yes. So we're kind of like jointly planning maternity leaves here too. So you'll also get to hear that on this season too, which obviously like, it's just cool because you never know where these things are going to go when you decide to work together for 6 months. Like I had no idea that would end up being part of the season. So that's kind of cool too. If you tune into the first episode, we won't go into all this now, but we talk a lot about how Michelle was one of the first people I actually told I was pregnant, which is funny.
Got that magic.
Yeah, because I wanted to make sure that was okay with her because of what she was kind of dealing with. And so we kind of talk about that too, but it's just added, I think, a lot of layers to this season. And I feel like that's going to be like really, really beautiful for people to listen to. Julie says you are pure joy, Michelle.
I love you, Julie.
That's so
much
sweet.
love for you.
Oh, Lisa, you have to like privately message me and tell me who you thought it was going to be. I'm so curious. Celebrating babies in business. Thank you, Jess. Oh, before I forget, sorry. I always do a giveaway for the live stream. So today we're giving away $100 gift card. If you comment anything, just tell Michelle you're excited for her, whatever. But I forgot to mention that at the beginning. So that's our giveaway today is the $100 gift card. So just, let us know. Okay, you will. Good. I'm so curious. What do you think has been like the most like surprising part so far? Because you were like a big literally listener before anyway. So it's like you kind of knew what to expect.
Yeah. I mean, like most things, it like brings up all of your shit. So I don't know if that's like surprising, but like,
yeah.
I just remember like my perfectionism tendencies, like every time I like, and this happens every time I enter a new coaching container too, but I felt like it was like amplified because I remember the like thing that I like, when Lacey told me she was pregnant, I was like, oh, that's not the thing I'm worried about. Like the thing that I'm worried about is like being the like coachee that like fucks up your literally season, which like, I don't even know like how one would do that.
Right.
But,
Totally.
Like, I just like wanted everything to like be perfect. And I was like, I've got this opportunity and I just like really want to make sure like, everyone's getting what they need from it. And like realizing that like releasing all of that was actually what was going to serve me and the people listening best. But I think like too, like I remember just being so nervous the first couple of episodes. And then I think as it's gone on, like I've relaxed until then I'm just like, okay, like it is what it is. And also like, I have like a belief that I'm like, if I'm getting value from it, somebody else is going to get value from it. But yeah, that like, I did not know like when the dogs are barking in episode 1, y'all, like I was losing my shit internally. I was like, I'm already ruining it. Like, I can't believe it.
I think you like messaged me right afterwards and we're like, oh my God.
I was like, I'm so sorry.
Like, yeah.
And then now, one of them's like laying so calmly next to me. And I'm like, of course you do this now.
Yeah. I think it's like something that you don't think about until you're in it, but almost like the weight of it is heavy to be like, wait, this is supposed to serve me, but it's supposed to serve everyone else and like kind of to find your flow in that. And so I think it's just like why I always am saying on episodes, like, think about how hard this is for the person sharing, or like, think about like what, you know, they're going through to be able to like show up for this. And I think it's just really important we share that. And I appreciate you saying that, because I think that it seems like you're just getting a coaching session, but there's no way that's not at play to an extent in the back of your head, no matter what, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think like I said before, like I'm generally like really transparent and open, but like there are certain things like in the back of my mind that I'm like, is this something that I like want to say? And it's more around the people in my life, and am I telling their story versus like my own story. It's like, here you go, here's a word vomit version of it.
Totally.
And I also think too, like even as like we come up on recording our last couple of sessions together, like I feel this like weird pressure to like tie everything up in like a beautiful bow. And I think that that's a really normal part of a coaching process, right? Of like, I should be at a like beautiful like ending, even if there's like maybe a sequel coming, you know, but like that's not how life is always. And I've had clients who have ended sessions and they're like, wait, like I'm in a low right now, like I'm not ready to end things. And like that just is how it is sometimes.
Totally. I have a lot to say on that too, but Julie's laughing at you being the one that fucks up the whole thing.
Yes, she would be.
Everyone's saying congratulations. Kristen knew too. It's so funny how many of you all thought it was Michelle. I really love that. That makes me happy. Yeah, but I think that, so, I mean, I guess we can share this, spoiler alert, but Michelle and I are going to continue working together. So it's even like, I think in some of those cases, it's even less of like a wrap up in some ways, because it feels like a continuation for us. And so I think what's important for us is that we're never trying to do something for the audience. Mm-hmm. Like we're never trying to make it feel like it's tied in a bow, when really for us, it's continuing. And I think that's so important, is like, you know, it really feeling transparent and true to like what's happening, versus it feeling like there's some things that are almost like manufactured for like the sake of the podcast. And I really don't like try very hard for us to never do that. So I think that that's really important to see too, where that like sometimes seasons are going to end in this kind of like open. I actually think Erica's did, because Erica and I still work together too. And I think her last session was like a really tough, like money mindset session, you know? And didn't necessarily, I mean, I feel like it felt complete in terms of like, we provided the value we were meant to provide, but I don't think it felt complete in terms of her journey at all. Like some people have asked me if Erica was going to like come back on the podcast for, you know, a subsequent season or something. But like, yeah, I think like it's okay if that's how coaching goes sometimes. And I feel like that's really helpful to normalize too, where like your life is happening. Like when we end the podcast, you're going to be like a couple months out from maternity leave. Like there's almost no way to have that feel like a perfect bow, right?
Yeah, for sure. Also the comment about like Erica coming back, I'm like, this is even more testament to like the women tell all, where are they now?
Oh yeah.
Episode. I messaged Lacey and I was like, we need a women tell all, like Coachee's tell all, like literally version.
We really do though. That would be so great. I would love that. Oh, that's so beautiful. Lucy says you are such a light, and she's so excited for you to get this opportunity to listen. Alessia said, why didn't I guess I'm the only one? Well, hopefully we have some people guessing. So I very much appreciate that you were. That was actually one of my questions, if the Coachees typically continue on after the season ends. Yeah. I always offer that as an option, because to me, it's really important that someone doesn't feel like they're just coming for the podcast or whatever. In general, I guess you could say, like my philosophy is like, if someone wants to keep working with me, I want to create a spot for them. And so I treat podcast coachees the same. And I would say most have. For the most part, I mean, obviously, like there's exceptions. I think Allie and I even talked about it on her season, why it didn't make sense for her to continue. But Erica and Michelle, I still work with Sam. From Sam was season 2, I think.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like it just depends, but that option is definitely there for people.
We actually talk
that's just
about
what I
that on
believe
an
in.
episode. Like I
Yeah.
really awkwardly asked Lacey, like, do I get to keep working with you? Which is funny because I actually went back and read the like client agreement later and it literally said it in there. And I was like, wow, I could have saved myself a lot of anxiety and awkwardness, but I'm glad we got to have this moment anyway.
Yeah, totally. Cause you were kind of like, but what happens when this ends? And I'm like, well, whatever you want to have happen.
It was when the golden ticket was coming out and I was like, how much do I need to gun for this golden ticket? And then watching what Sabrina went through, I was like, this would have never worked this way for me.
That was not the move. Yeah.
It's not the move.
Thank you, Ashley. She says she loves you so much.
Love you too, Ash.
That means you have a possible open spot for a podcast coachee afterwards. Yes, Elisa, I do. I won't start with that until probably, or start recording for that until probably August when I come back for maternity leave. But yeah, we will definitely be ready for another coachee. Manisha loves the reunion episode idea. I know we really do. Don't Michelle, that don't let me forget that.
Okay, I'll bring it up in September when we start working together.
Yes, we're gonna do that. I mean, oh, Manisha and Elisa, did you see each other? Oh, I would love that, and I would be jealous. That would be so fun. She said, love that you're joining from the airport. So that's what made me think of that. What else did I want to ask you? There was something else I really wanted to ask you. Oh, I think like one thing that comes up a lot this season that I just wanted you to kind of like share about a little bit more is like, you know, so much life kind of happens in this season. I think whether it's like, you know, daycare stuff and like not having childcare because of like so many COVID related things, or being in first trimester, which is a bitch, like no matter how excited you are about it, like all that kind of stuff. Like, how has that felt to kind of navigate that through this and like feel like, you know, like that, yeah, like that permission to kind of like be in both and like let it be good and messy and all the things. Oh, they did see each other. So fun.
Really cute. Oh, I love this love fest that's happening in the comments right now.
Let's all do a meetup. Okay.
Everyone go to are we at JFK? Is that
yeah.
Everyone make your way to JFK. Honestly, like it was hard. Like I think too, for context, like I quit my 9-to-5 in August. And I think that's really important for folks to know going into this season, because the season starts about 2 months after that happened. And I had been planning on quitting my 9-to-5, but I wasn't necessarily planning on quitting on this timeline. And so you'll hear like I just feel a lot of pressure, and I still feel that now to like make money in my business, because we essentially cut our income in half when I left my 9-to-5. And
you didn't quit because you felt like the business was at the place for you to quit. You quit because something happened that like made you decide to quit.
It was time for me to go for my mental sanity, which also hopefully gives folks permission. Like it doesn't have to be perfect to like exit when you need to exit. But it was time. And so it was like, and there's just a lot of tension between, like, it felt like the life stuff was like getting in the way of the business, as opposed to both being allowed to like coexist together, which I know is something we talked about a lot. And I feel like we're still having conversations about. And so I like felt like I needed this time to like take care of myself after our losses and going into this other transfer, and then in my first trimester. But then that was like taking away from my ability to like get on calls with clients, or like being worried about like what clients were going to think when they found out I was pregnant. So like there's just a lot of like back and forth tension there. And I hope that it will just give like a lot of permission for folks who are in a similar season, who are like, how do I make these two things coexist? And the answer is it's okay if it's really messy. And it gets really messy. Like there's like power outages and like daycare closures and like not like, it's literally like a soap opera. Welcome to my life.
Yes. Well, we always say it's like reality TV without the, like trashy reality TV spin. And I think like that's true.
It's good that it's a podcast because literally did not look like this for at least 3 months of my pregnancy. Like I couldn't even straighten my hair. I was so nauseous. It was terrible. So anyways, glad to be feeling like a human again.
Yes. Nasheed said, I can't believe I can't believe there's been so much change and growth since 1 year for Millie and her. And Manisha says yes to a live stream meetup. I think we should do that for real. Yeah, I think the other thing that we touch on that it feels really important, I think like you've just had a lot of push and pull this season. And I think another version of that is that you had just left your 9 to 5 so closely, and some of that old lingering shit from the 9 to 5
still unpacking that.
Really, totally. Yeah. And it really impacts us. Like, and we don't realize how pervasive it is, I think. And so that I think,
yeah, especially if you're like 9 to 5 was in like the nonprofit or like the helping profession space, because there's just so much story around like how much money you're allowed to make while helping and what that's supposed to look like, and other duties as assigned, like so much.
Or even like how much control you have over your own outcomes. Like that's something, we've talked about, or how much you feel kind of pressured to just like do the things versus like what's behind doing the things. There's just like so much there. And I think it's like really helpful as we dive into those for people, because I think you could be 3 years out of a 9 to 5 and still having not looked at where some of this stuff is coming from. And so I think that will be really helpful for people too, is that like, that conditioning that we bring to what we're doing. It's like, just because you quit, it doesn't mean you leave that behind, no matter how much we wish that were true,
Yeah. And I worked in higher ed, just for reference, for 10 years. So it's a decade of conditioning. And there's so many blessings that I got from that season and got to bring with me into this coaching business, but there's also a lot of shit there too.
Yeah, totally. Oh, so good. I'm so excited for you guys to listen. I think it's also going to be interesting too, because this is the furthest ahead we've ever recorded, I guess is how I would say it. Like usually we're a month to 2 months ahead, and now we're obviously like almost 6. Somewhere January. Yeah, literally almost 6, because we started recording shortly after I found out. Well, I guess not. I was probably 3 months pregnant when we started recording. I guess that would make sense. So anyway, point being, like, it's really interesting because I feel like we almost like know more than I've ever known when a season was launching. So that's it's just been a different experience for me personally. I don't feel like better or worse. It's just been interesting. And I think different for you, because you've had to go through this whole time period knowing it's being recorded, but not getting to have the experience of it airing, right?
Yeah. And I think we talked about this a little in the intro episode, because I actually that was appealing to me, because I feel like it's given me space to like process stuff. So like a lot of the stuff I feel, some of it I'm still very much like we're still having repeat combos around, but a lot of it I also feel really removed from. And so that's one of the reasons I'm excited to listen, because I'm even just hearing folks reflect oh my gosh, so much change since February. And I'm yeah, a lot has happened. We did an intensive together, did Millie and her, joined Julia's mastermind for 6 months. And now we've been working together for 5 months. And so a lot of support, a lot of shifting. And so even that's just exciting to hear. I'm oh, cool. This is fun.
Yes, totally. And I think that that's really beneficial in some ways, that there's been so much space too, in that you had to have your space to process the pregnancy and all of that. I think it's interesting how meant to be that was. Because if not, that would have been a really weird situation, I guess you could say, that we would have been in, where yeah, if we were only a month or 2 out and you were telling me hey, I found out I'm pregnant, but I'm not ready to share that 2 months in, so anyway, it's just kind of cool how it was so meant to be that it worked out that way.
Yeah. And it's it's like, I'm not going to go too into it because I know we talk about it in the intro episode, but it's just like, it is really cool to see how that all like played out and unraveled. Definitely go listen to the intro episode to like find out more behind the scenes of like how this all unfolded.
Yeah, totally. Everyone's very excited. Oh, Manisha said she really loves it because she's not a business coach and she comes from a like traditional like helping profession. So yeah, I think that will be super helpful. Everyone's really excited. So excited, Katie.
I'm excited too.
So I don't know if I even said this yet, but it will start airing the 23rd. So
A week
9 days from now. So a week from this Wednesday, it's coming out next week on Wednesday. And then we'll continue for, the 6 months that we are together. I have been recording like our, I don't know if I've ever shared this, but I really try very hard to do this. Oh, it's not already out. No. Sorry, Kristen. I think I might have misspoke there. It's next Wednesday. I don't know if I've shared my own process around this, but I think it's helpful to know, just so you guys have context when you're listening to this, is when I'm recording the clip-ins or the solo episodes, I really try to do it very much in alignment with like when it's happening. So like, for example, Michelle and I literally have a coaching session at 2 today. So like
it's
right after this, she gets so much FaceTime today. And I will probably record the clip-ins right after. Or if not, I'll usually do it like next day, next few days. And I try to do that because I want it to feel like I'm just in it there too, where I don't like have this perspective that I'm like coming back to, if that makes sense. Like where I'm not like sharing clip-ins now because I know what happened 5 sessions out from that. And same with solo episodes. Like I really try to record them in line with where they fall in the season. So that I'm not like accidentally bringing a lot of future casting in, or because sometimes it would be like, I've actually thought about this extensively. This is how weird I am, but like it would make me look so much smarter and better in some ways if I like waited to
be like voice of God on the episode
and like knew what was happening and could like point that thread and could I could make that look really really good if I wanted to, but that's why I've been so intent on not doing that, because as much as like I expect Michelle to show up and tell us the real stuff and whatever, I want it to feel real. So my point in saying all that is, even though you guys are going to be listening to this so much later, I was recording them as it was happening too. So like everything you're hearing is like a real time thing. And also I didn't want to be recording like, 6 solo episodes, like while trying to give birth and stuff like that. So anyway, they're all done.
It's kind of funny that you say that about the clip-ins, because as someone who's like listened to all of the seasons, like you would never know that. Like you could have just as much like recorded them at the end as in the beginning. And I feel like maybe during Erica's season, you talked about how you had to like batch some of her episodes and you were like, never again.
Yes, totally.
These are the things I remember. I can't remember anything for shit, but like I remember stuff like that. Why?
Well, hers were actually, what happened was we had like a shift with our editing team and stuff. So I actually had to do hers like even sooner. And I really liked that even more. And I've just tried to keep that up more too, because I think that like, I mean, the other ones I was doing close enough, it would be like a week apart or whatever, but like having the session and then like doing it that day is really interesting. Cause then I don't even like, oh, this is another thing that I want to share. Michelle uses BaseCamp like really consistently. Like sometimes it just depends. Like some of our clients do, some of them don't. Like it just depends. But Michelle definitely uses BaseCamp.
I'm an overuser of BaseCamp.
No, you're not an overuser, but I'm just saying like sometimes that's different with different podcast guests. And so it gives a different podcast experience. And so I like recording soon too, because I don't even want to hear anything else from Michelle until I kind of do that, because sometimes she'll be like, oh, I reflected on this and this and this. And it would be too easy to like take that context to it. But tell me about that, because I think that that's actually a good point for everybody to just know, is that we are having a lot of conversations outside of the podcast. I don't actually think that will make the podcast confusing at all, but I do think it's like really helpful for people to know there's like a lot that goes on in between.
Yeah. I mean, I think when there's something that's happened in BaseCamp that's like relevant to what we're talking about, we always like make sure to like come back to it. And obviously if there's ever something you're like, I don't know what's happening, you can message us and if I can remember, I will try to fill you in.
That's the big caveat, but yes.
If one of us can remember, we will tell you. But yeah, I mean, like, I think honestly, like for me, I think the like in-between support is like such a valuable part of coaching too. It's something that I really encourage my like clients to take advantage and do. And I also know too, like, you're going to be a better coach to me if you like know what's happening inside of my head. And this is the first time that we've ever really worked together in this capacity. And so I basically tend to over communicate in BaseCamp of like, here's what's coming up for me. Here's where my brain is going with that. And like, sometimes it's just me being like, I just need to dump this somewhere so I can like process. And I don't like, reflection's always welcome, but like, it's just me processing. And I'm also an external processor. And so it's helpful for me to just like type it. And sometimes I look at the paragraph length and I'm like, okay. That never stops me from writing more. More comes up.
Always does.
I'm like, okay. And so I really use that as a space to like make sure that like Lacey knows what's happening in my head. Cause like, I think when you're like actually coaching with someone, that doesn't necessarily come up in quite the same way. Whereas like when I'm like processing or typing, and the reality is like stuff happens in between sessions. Like things don't happen in these like bucket moments. And I tell my clients this all the time. I'm like, that's why I offer Voxer support between my coaching sessions. Cause I'm like, shit's going to happen in between. And I don't want you to feel like you have to wait until Tuesday at whatever for us to process that. Cause it might not even be relevant at that point anymore, but it was in the moment. And so, yeah, that's kind of been my like BaseCamp philosophy. I don't even really know what the prompt was. We were talking about BaseCamp.
Yeah. I think just if it felt like it changed the experience at all, but I totally agree with you. Like, I feel like it's not like gonna change the podcasting experience, but of course, like Michelle said, if there's ever something that feels like a gap or whatever, let us know. But I think it is helpful to have context of like the person who's getting this support is also getting a lot of other support. And obviously that's the part that you don't see. And I think that's what's so interesting about Literally that I try to remind people all the time is like, you're getting at least 18 hours, if not more, of the behind the scenes, and you're still missing this whole other piece. And like, that's important to know, I think, because sometimes we can just feel like, like just from watching someone on social media, we know what it must be like, or even just from listening to Literally, we know everything. And like, just remembering there are still all these other things at play, I think sometimes is helpful to just not be in comparison mode sometimes, because it's so easy to do that. And just helpful to remember like, oh, and she's also getting, daily BaseCamp outreach or something like that, just to be like, so if I'm like, why did it take me longer to move through that than it's taking Michelle? Well, take things like that into consideration,
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know that there's anything that like came into BaseCamp that like doesn't. I think that's the other thing is like a lot of coaching is like the same thing over and over and over again until something clicks.
Yeah, totally.
And so like, I think too, like a lot of stuff that showed up in BaseCamp was the same conversations we were having on our calls. So it helps move stuff along when it like needs to, but it's more just like the repetition.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, totally. No, not to be in comparison mode. Exactly. Lucy said those would be interesting podcast episodes, birth podcasting. Yeah, I think we'll skip those. Dina's so excited to witness you next season. So good. What is BaseCamp? BaseCamp is basically just like our communication tool. So some people use Slack, some people use Voxer, like Trello, whatever. We use BaseCamp. It's like a project management tool, but it has like a chat function. So it's just like a lot of back and forth, like chat kind of conversation. So yeah, that's what we use. Okay, I think that's it. Anything else you want to share or tell the people? It's where to find you.
What do I want to tell the people? Where to find me? Here in this Facebook group. That's one space. I'm basically on every live stream at 1 on Mondays. So if you want to find me,
yeah, just here at 1 on Monday.
I'm like in the little chat. Obviously, I'm not like physically on all the live streams. And then you can also find me over on Instagram. That's where like my business like really is. So my business is ThriveVF, THRIVF, Thrive Through IVF. I just love that. I can't get over it. It's just so
you're like, it just still tickles me. Yes.
It still tickles me. And my website is thrivethroughivf.com. So, and the like caption thing is like butchering all of that, but like, you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
So that's where you can find me. And then, yeah, I'm just excited for y'all to listen. I hope it gives you a lot of permission around like balancing business and life and all the things. And as things come up or resonate, like I'd love to hear from you. I like, you know, if it's making a difference in your life, let me know, because that would mean a lot to me, because it's been an experience to put this out there, and also feels so aligned for me and like where I feel like I'm supposed to be in this world. So I'm just really grateful and honored to have this opportunity and to get to share my journey with you all. And I hope that it helps make your lives a little easier.
Oh, thank you. So good. Yeah. BaseCamp is my therapy. Michelle, I'm with you. Thanks, Jess. It's true. Okay. The thing I want to say is, like we were talking about earlier, where it's kind of like an interesting experience in that it was recorded much earlier, but I think Michelle is going to be in an interesting position because a lot of this is going to be airing while I am on maternity leave. We've already talked about this, and obviously she has permission to reach out to me if she's having a moment about it, but it would be really helpful if y'all did reach out and did share that it was impactful to you, because I am going to be decidedly less available as some of this is coming up. And so that is my request to all of you, is if you listen, send Michelle some extra love, because this is already super vulnerable. And then like the vulnerability of like not having as much access or support during that time, because obviously I will be doing the baby thing, is still a thing. Like, I mean, obviously she's prepared and it's all good, but like, I think the more love that we can all give her as a community, the better. So that is my request to all of you.
I like that request. Thank you.
Awesome. You're so welcome. And otherwise, just thank you for doing this. I'm so grateful to you. I think this has been really, really special, and I'm so excited for everyone to get to hear it.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right, guys, I hope that you have a beautiful week. If you comment, we're giving away the $100 gift card. And otherwise, I will be back next Monday, I think is our, yeah, I'm pretty positive. So I'm going to say it, is our maternity leave conversation with Megan. Everybody has been asking about this. And so Megan and I are coming together to talk about like how we plan for maternity leave, all of the logistics of that. A lot of people have been asking me like, what time am I taking? What does the plan look like? How am I doing that with one-on-one? All of that felt most appropriate to share that with Megan being there, because she has been such a huge part of the kind of orchestration of all of this. And so if you have been interested in that, it doesn't mean that you have to even be interested in maternity leave per se. It's just more like taking extended time off is kind of the thought process there. So we will be here next week for that conversation. If you guys have questions you want to make sure that we answer on that, let me know, but that should be a really good one. Oh, good. Lindsay's excited. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here. We love you, and I will see you next week. Thank you again, Michelle. Bye, guys.